Excuse me. Doom, 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 doom. Doom, 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 doom. Hi.
Hi.
This is Chastity.
This is Jimmy.
And we're sitting here stuck together.
We are stuck. But we are happy.
We are happy.
Today we got stuck with a needle.
Yes, we did.
We gave blood. It makes you very tired.
Yeah, it did.
He slept for an hour and a half. I put away all the groceries.
Yeah, you did. Thank you.
He carried them upstairs, so.
But then that was it. It was all done. It was all done. It might have had to do with the lack of food going in my body today.
We haven't really ate except for what they feed you at the blood bank, which are those little cookies and that little juice and more cookies and nuts.
That was enough energy for me to carry the groceries upstairs.
Oh, I ate before we left. That's right.
I haven't ate all day.
You didn't eat all day.
Except for those cookies.
I ate leftovers because I didn't want to be not eating and feel sick when you give blood. You should always eat before you give blood.
I didn't feel sick.
No.
But I didn't feel like doing anything else.
He had no more energy.
So, I guess this is me slipping into my fasting, my 20 for 2 or so.
Okay.
22 for 2.
I think it's impossible for us to fast while we're home. That's why.
Yeah, 22 for 2 works.
We'll see. So, today we're going to be in chapters 16 and 17 of 1 Samuel. We're going to touch on David. David was a great guy. We're going to learn a little bit about him. Okay.
Didn't I pray yesterday?
Oh, I
we
could pray
prayed together.
Lord, I just thank you for this night, and I thank you for your word, and I thank you that you give us the ability to learn from your word. I thank you that you give us new chances, and that you set us on new paths, and that all things happen for a reason, and nothing is a surprise to you, and I am grateful for that. So, Lord, we just ask that you would be with us at this time and bless those that come in and help us to be a blessing. And we just thank you and praise you in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
I was going to pray too, but you said a lot.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't
it's
mean
okay.
to say too much.
You didn't say too much. You packed in a lot
I'm sorry.
of power in that prayer.
I get used to praying by myself when I do my other live stream.
Oh, in giving blood today, I put a little post on my Facebook, which I don't post much, but it made me remember, what can wash away my sins?
Nothing but the blood of Jesus.
What can make me whole again?
Nothing but the blood of Jesus.
So,
Oh, precious is the soul that makes me white as
snow.
No other fount I know.
Nothing but the blood of Jesus.
That's nice.
That was nice.
You just bust into song. It's like High School Musical.
Or whatever show you had on that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Some sitcom came on and it was just kids singing. It was odd.
But I digress.
We are digressed. So we are going to go to chapter 16 of 1 Samuel. And when you get there, you're going to see that Samuel had a direction. God gave him a direction, and he said, you need to go find this kid. His name's David. Got to go to his dad's house. His name's Jesse. Jesse was the son, grandson, great-grandson of Boaz, who married Ruth, who was a Moabite. Yep, because God can use all things for his glory. Just had to throw that in there. Wasn't in tonight's, but I just wanted you to see the connection. So, Samuel goes to Jesse's house, and he says he's looking for this certain person, so he brings all his sons, and God says, nope. Nope.
Not that one.
Nope.
Not that one.
Nope.
Nope.
7 sons go by, and he's like, do you got another one? And he's like, well, there's that little one out in the field just watching them sheep. Goes and gets him, and God says, this is the one. This is it. Because God saw his heart. And so, that's in verse 13 of 1 Samuel 16. So, God saw David's heart. God knew David would be a man after his own heart. And so, Samuel told him to anoint David as king in front of all his brothers. So it's kind of like it reminds me of the story of
Your
Joseph.
tattoo?
What?
Nothing.
What?
Go ahead.
It reminds me of Joseph in the coat of many colors, and how Joseph was the favorite son, and all the other sons were just chopped liver. And so, not that it says Jesse favored him, but I would have to feel like I would feel funny if my youngest brother gets anointed king and I'm not. So, just a thought.
Or if your second son's tattoo name was on you first.
Oh, yes, I got my kids' names tattooed out of order because for some reason my tattoo artist decided he would change the order of the names that I gave him. Again, we digress. So, in chapter 16 of 1 Samuel, we then see the tables are turning. And thank you for the like. Thank you, Mario, for joining
Thanks,
in.
Mario.
So, the tables are turning. David is now anointed king, and Saul gets a tormenting spirit. It says in verse 14 that he was tormented by evil spirits because he chose to disobey the Lord. He chose to not be right with God. He chose to not try and get everything the way it should be. And so, instead of choosing to be right with God, he chose to keep these tormenting spirits for the rest of his life, which sounds like a really bad idea. So, lastly, in chapter 16, we see that his servants say, hey, maybe if you listen to some music, you won't be so tormented. So they say, you need to go find somebody that can play music that'll bless you so these tormenting spirits will leave. And they find David. God, just happenstance. Hey, there's this kid. He plays the great harp. And he will drive away the evil spirits. And so they get him and bring him to Saul. So just so happens that the one person in all of the land that is going to be king is now playing music for the king that has had the throne ripped from his hands and is now being tormented by evil spirits, bringing us to chapter 17.
So, even though all this was going on, there was still war going on.
Yeah, life goes on.
Life goes on. So, before it's just so much.
It is a lot.
But it's such a good.
You gotta hit it. You gotta hit it.
It's such a good book.
Yeah, we gotta get the good pieces.
So, nevertheless, Saul's the king, and Saul's still leading the armies out.
Yes.
But as we know, Saul doesn't have backing of God, so he's just kind of out there.
Yeah, he knows he's got to be there, but he doesn't really want to fight, and because he doesn't really want to fight, his men don't really want to fight. So there they all are on the battlefield, and
so they assembled at
Sokol
in Judah. They pitched up their camps, and they're there to battle
the
Philistines. They met the Philistines. So they're camped up. They're occupied on the hill. The Philistines were occupied on the hill, and the Israelites were on another hill. And in between them, there was a valley.
The battlefield.
So I'm just paraphrasing. I'm not going verse by
No, we don't
verse.
need to read it all because that's why you have a Bible.
And that's why you have a Bible.
That's what I meant, but yeah.
Oh, me.
You have a Bible, and they have
And
a
they
Bible.
have a Bible, so
Yeah,
you can
so we're
verify.
we're just showing you.
We're in the NIV.
You got to dig. You got to dig yourself.
Yeah. So, a champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span, which means he was 9 feet 9 inches tall.
Wow.
Take that, Shaq.
How tall is Shaq?
7 something.
Alexa, how tall is Shaq?
Shaquille O'Neal is 7 feet 1 inch tall.
7 feet 1 inch tall. What?
Alexa, how tall is Yao Ming?
Yao Ming is 7 feet 6 inches tall.
Oh.
Yao Ming, who towered over the big man, was 7 feet 6 inches.
This guy's 9 feet 9 inches. That is really tall.
9 feet 9 inches of.
And he's not like those weird giant guys that get big and tall and then they start getting all lanky and they look like they're gonna fall over. He's a warrior, so he would be like
The
biggest-
Big Show in the WWF.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say The Rock, but big. But yes,
Big like The Rock. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 9 feet and 9 inches. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze weighing 5,000 shekels. 5,000 shekels. He wore clothes. His suit of armor weighed 125 pounds.
Almost as much as me.
He was.
That's my ideal weight.
He was wearing a human.
Wearing a human.
On his legs, he wore bronze greaves and a bronze javelin was slung on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and on its iron point weighed a 600 shekel. It weighed 600 shekels. The iron point.
Just the point.
Just the point. It weighed 15 pounds, so it was a steel shaft, like a weaver's rod.
Mm-hmm.
And the
I
iron
don't-
point.
I'm
I don't
not a
know.
weaver,
I don't know
so-
what a weaver's rod is.
But it doesn't matter. It's really heavy and it's really heavy. And he's really tall. Oh, Ashley's on. Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
Wyatt.
Hi, Wyatt. And he would sit there, and he would taunt the Israelites.
Well, are you going to send somebody today? Are you going to send somebody today? What are you guys doing out there?
So,
Which is a weird way to battle because I would think, we're all just sitting here. Why didn't they just attack him? But I think it was the whole, embarrassment. He was just really, it was a humiliation thing. It was a mind game. The battle.
he was just coming out, talking trash. And not only that, it's this day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other. So he's not just doing that. He's calling out Israel, which he knows serves the one true God. So he's kind of like dissing everybody.
Yes.
I'm
God.
I'm going to diss your men, I'm going to diss your people, and I'm going to diss your God because you're not going to send somebody out. And on hearing this, the Philistines' word, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed, which I can understand being dismayed because this guy's a giant. He's a giant of a man. But they were terrified.
Yeah. Because they allowed fear to overtake them instead of having faith that God could do this.
Yeah. Because the first time I walked up to a horse and I was like, oh, I'm going to ride this horse, I was dismayed. It's a giant animal.
Mm-hmm.
But I got on its back and I rode it.
Oh my gosh, did you see this? In verse 16 it says, for 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. 40 days? 40 days? 40 days.
Now, the 3 eldest sons followed, and these are David's brothers, followed Saul. But David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem for 40 days.
40 days.
He came down every morning.
Philistines weren't worried about it then. Philistines were really having fun. I think they were having fun with
And every evening. He didn't just do it once a day. He did it twice a day.
So let me make sure that you go to sleep remembering this.
So, early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd and loaded up and set out as Jesse directed him when he reached the camp as the army was going out into battle, shouting the war cry. So they're shouting their war cry. Yeah! Hoo-ah! Let's go get these guys. And then
so they're running to the lines, and as he's talking to them, he hears the Philistines chant, where's your man? What are you going to do? Why is nobody coming out? And I can't help but think he left everything. He ran to the battle lines, and he's asking his brothers how they were. He really did want to be in the battle. Like, he's the youngest brother. He really was wanting to be in the know. The little brother that's always in the mix.
And it's look. Just look.
David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear. Whenever he would shout his usual defiance, they would run in fear. But this time, David heard it. So evidently he would come like during the day when it was already over from the morning and leave before it happened in the evening. This is the first time in 40 days that David hears this. And it's that once you know, you can't unknow it. Now he knows this is happening, and he can't unknow it.
So he goes around and he starts asking the men, what will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? What? Wait a minute, put on the brakes, stop it, hold the boat. We've been reading for quite some time. The only thing that we've read about God is God left. His spirit left.
His spirit left Saul.
Now we're reading all this stuff, and we're reading about this guy coming out mocking the Israelites.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, David hears this, and he's like, that he should defy the armies of the living God.
I see what you're saying.
So,
hasn't really been called that before. Huh?
So all of a sudden, here's David, and who does he bring on the scene with him? God.
Yes.
Finally.
God has been invited to the battle of his people.
Finally. Saul didn't invite him.
No. They're all afraid.
His brothers didn't.
Fear and faith can't live in the same place. You can't have fear and faith at the same time. David had no fear, that's why he had faith. They all had fear, that's why they had no faith. That's why he brought God and they brought fear.
So David keeps going around and asking guys, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to the guy that defeats him? What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, and he burned with anger.
Because now it's coming out. What are you doing here? Get out of here. You think you know everything. Just because you got anointed king by that guy doesn't mean that you can tell us anything.
And I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle.
And see, that's how other people can perceive you when you are so consumed with your own fear and dismay. When you have poor self-image, you give that to other people. So.
And David's cry was, "Now what have I done?" Said David.
And he just keeps
"Can I
asking
even speak?"
So he just keeps asking people.
So he turned to someone else, yep, and brought up the matter again.
And in verse 31, what David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. So our key verses were, David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills the Philistine and removes the disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" And what David was overheard, what David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. So those are 1 Samuel 17, 26, and 31. He wasn't afraid to say what he meant, and he meant what he said, and he didn't care that anybody heard because he meant it.
So David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on the account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him."
He's a boy.
Little shepherd boy. Full of God.
Full of God.
Full of the
Living God. Very good, man. Love that.
And Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against the Philistines and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior since his youth."
Has anybody ever told you you can't, you shouldn't, you could, but you couldn't do that? You're not able to do that.
You've never done it before.
There's no way.
I remember when we first got together, I was looking for jobs. One day, I went and applied to be a car salesman.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't remember that. I don't remember that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't tell you about it.
I don't like car salesmen.
So, fill out my resume. They called me in.
Really?
Yeah. You know, new shirt, new shoes. You know, sharp dressed man.
I know.
Old rock and roll there.
I know.
So I sat down with this man and I interviewed with him, and he said, "Well, I like the way you talk, and I like this, and I like that." And so the interview went on, and then he said, "Well, have you ever sold cars before?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, how do you expect to sell a car now?" And I said, "Well, sir, before you were a car salesman, did you ever sell a car?" And he looked at me and he was kind of confused, and he was like, well, no. And I said, "Well, then what would stop me from selling a car? Just because I haven't done it before doesn't mean that I can't do it now." And he's
probably why you didn't get that.
And he said, "Well, this isn't the way this all works. Usually you start out at a small lot and then you get your experience there." I said, "But why wouldn't I get my experience here with you? Because you're looking for a car salesman, and I want to sell cars, and I want to work for you, and I'm willing to learn whatever needs to be learned in order to be a car salesman." And yes, nevertheless, I didn't get the job because I had a lack of experience.
Even though you pointing out his prior lack of experience didn't qualify you for being able to get the job.
Well, I can't help it that I was filled with the power of the living God.
That's right, babe. You didn't need that job. That's not where you were supposed to be anyway.
But it brings it back to the real world.
Yes.
Like you were saying, how many times have you been told you can't do something because you've never done it before?
Many times.
And I'm the kind of guy that, don't tell me that. You can't tell me just because I haven't, I can't.
Because I have the spirit of the living God.
Yes, and that will stir the spirit in me, and I will go do it.
So, our key words were God sees the heart. God definitely saw the heart of David. That Saul chose to stay in his torment. He could have not stayed in his torment, but he chose to stay there. Music was a key in being able to soothe the savage beast, per se. Goliath was a
giant man that was full of himself and thought that he could
full of himself.
He thought he could defeat all of Israel, Saul, and the living God.
Saul was afraid and tormented, but God.
But God.
But God what?
But God sent David.
God sent David.
Because God chose David.
God chose David.
And David was there at the right place at the right time for the right reason.
Yes.
For the right reason.
Yes.
He wasn't just like there.
He wasn't there because he had a conceited heart, wicked heart, and was conceited, even though that's what somebody else was trying to tell him. You don't have to become what other people say you are. You don't have to be at a lacking just because other people are lacking. People's lack of faith doesn't have to be your lack of faith. People's fear doesn't have to be your fear. You can choose to have the living God.
And I think what really kind of stuck out to me now that we've gone through it again is that you're not able to go out against the Philistine and fight him. You're only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth. I think that's why when I hire people, I just hire them based on who they are, not what they've done.
It's good.
I mean, yeah, I'm looking for some kind of experience in what we do, but I don't base my sole opinion on all these, you can bring me a stack of accomplishments, but that means nothing without the backbone of who you are.
Yeah, because you could have that stack of accomplishments, but your character could suck.
Yeah, you could actually be the wicked.
Yeah. So the accomplishments don't make the man, because Saul was the one that was accomplished and looked amazing. And we see how far that got him.
He looked the role.
Yep.
But he couldn't do the role.
Couldn't do it. David was a man after God's own heart.
And he didn't look the role.
But he had the living God. So it doesn't matter what you look like if you're on God's side. That's what I think.
Yeah.
That's what stuck with me today, is it doesn't matter what other people think. I gotta mean what I say and say what I mean, and I have the living God, so I'm not gonna let others' words be me.
Isn't that like a Dr. Seuss thing?
Say what you mean what you say. An elephant's faithful 100%. That's not how it rhymes, but that's kind of close.
But it works, right?
Yeah.
That works. Like our opening music today.
An elephant's faithful 100%.
It's gonna bother her for a while.
It is. I'm gonna have to find it out.
We'll know what it is. She'll probably mention it tomorrow.
I'm probably gonna ask Alexa.
So, in recapping.
Oh, I thought we just recapped. Go ahead.
Well, we kind of recapped. So quick recap. Israelites wanted a king. They got a king. The king didn't do right. And if you go through Chronicles, you'll just hear about him.
Who? Saul?
Well, Kings and Chronicles.
Oh yeah. First, Second Samuel. First Kings, Second Kings. Yeah, that's what I'm going through right now.
Yeah, you'll just hear about.
And this one did evil, and this one did evil, and this one reigned 1 week. One guy reigned like. It was just like, dude, how evil can you be if you're only gonna reign 1 week? Man.
And then the flash of light will come, and this person
reigned 52 years,
found
and they
favor
did right.
and did right in the eyes of the Lord.
So yeah.
So the recap is important. If you read through Kings and Chronicles, it gives you a breakdown, but it gives you a short breakdown of these different kings and what they did.
We'll touch on some of them, I'm sure.
But it's not like this, where it's a lot of information.
Oh,
You know?
because this is a story, and this
You know,
this is all connected to Jesus.
It's
that's
like
why.
it's like when we get to Songs of Solomon.
Right.
You know, he had many wives,
Yes.
but he wrote about one,
Yes.
and she made it to the Bible.
Yes.
So,
Wives were Saul's downfall, but yes, there's a book of his love for one. So there you go.
and we'll talk about that later. But it's interesting that, you know, right here it's like we're gonna pause. We're gonna pause. You know, you fast forward it, but now we're here. We're at the movie part where it's exciting,
Mm-hmm.
and we're gonna talk a lot about it. This is why I really like the story of David.
I know.
And David going through and going.
So tomorrow we're going to touch on David and Goliath.
She's cutting me off. Is what she's doing.
I'm not, because it's only 30 minutes.
She's shutting me down.
I'm hungry. Honestly, that's what I'm just hungry. I'm hungry.
So, like I
Sorry.
was saying, recap.
Recapping stuff.
We know that the Israelites are going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do just as they followed Moses. They're going to continue on that road. Now they're going to change their minds. Now they want a king. They got their king. You see what happened to their ooh-la-la king. Now the king's brought them down to this valley, and he's afraid to make a move because he's kind of got these evil spirits that are chattering in his head,
Yes.
and he can't find peace. No
So-
peace.
So we had to get David,
No peace, no rest.
because David had the anointing of God.
David brings him peace while he's playing the harp, but David's not there all the time because he's watching over the flock. That's another key thing. David's a shepherd,
Like Jesus.
like Jesus is a shepherd. David is a shepherd. He takes care of a flock. He is also going to be king. So what's he
Jesus.
going to do? He's going to take care of his flock. Who is who? The Israelites. So it's all kind of going down this track. And see, I don't share these things with her previous to, so I get to share it while I'm here. And, you know, I'm in the spirit. Sorry.
I love it.
So we go from a flock that has no shepherd to a shepherd coming in and kind of starting to make a name for itself, because David just couldn't pop on the scene. You know, Saul is his king, and that's another thing we find about is the character of David as he goes through this whole thing. But this is the start. This is the opening. This is the beginning of David showing his true character.
Yes.
And bringing Israel back. Starting to reel it in. It's like a big fish. You get a big fish. Opening day for fishing is like at the end of the month, and we're still under quarantine. So hopefully Tom will still be able to go out and do some fishing and stay socially distanced while we do it. But if you catch a big fish and you're out there and you've got a 3-pound test, so what 3-pound test means that the line is tested up to 3 pounds, and then after 3 pounds it breaks. So you might be out there fishing with 3 pounds and you catch a 10-pound fish. Well, you just can't reel it in because the line's going to break. But if you do it slowly and you work at it, you'll wear that fish down, and then that fish will come in and you will catch it. The same thing's going on with David. David's just not going to pop on the scene and just take over.
Oh, no, he definitely doesn't do that, because it takes him forever to become king.
David steps on the scene and he works his way to the position. He's a salesman that has no sales experience, but now he's going to start gaining that sales experience. I would have been a great car salesman.
You're a pretty good motivational speaker.
And that's why we ran
For the living God.
So, that's what I have for you. That's the recap. David's on the scene now. But David said to Saul in verse 34, 1 Samuel 17, verse 34, after he said, you can't go because you're a young man, and he's been a warrior all throughout his youth. But then David said to Saul, you're going to have to find out tomorrow, because I'm not going to say what Saul said to David.
That's a spoiler alert. You can't
What David
tell
said
them.
to Saul.
Of course, you could look it up. This is your homework. So we're going on from there, and we're going to be touching on David and Goliath. And that's it.
That's what you get. Cliffhanger.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate your time, and we hope that you got blessed, and we hope that you can share it, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
And we hope that you start chatting with us. Ask questions.
Chatting.
Ask questions. Share. Be in it with us.
Yes.
Because we're stuck together, and now you're stuck with us, so we might as well talk a little bit.
Yes. We'd
Chat a
love
little
to
bit.
talk to you
Chat
guys.
it out.
So try and get on next time and be able to chat with us. We'd love it.
So, like, follow, share.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Good night.